and thank you all so much for joining us tonight. As I'm sure you are aware, the show you're here to see does not necessarily tell a pleasant story, but it does tell an important one. While tonight's production will display a wonderful performance by the Lyme Players and an incredibly moving storyline, the content does contain graphic descriptions of violence and very strong language, including the use of homophobic slurs. It's important to note that these are elements of the original production and are intended to make the performance as realistic and powerful as possible. We do not condone the use of such language under any other circumstance at Lyme, as it directly opposes our core values. In addition, if at any point an audience member finds the content to be too upsetting, they are encouraged to quietly step out of the auditorium. It is our ambition at Lyme to work harder to strengthen our community by teaching inclusivity and empathy. Consequently, in the Commons, you will find a booth operated by Spectrum, a club dedicated to promoting equality and diversity here at LLHS. During the intermission or after the show, we invite you to visit our table to participate in the Matthew Shepard Foundation's Heart Challenge by writing something kind on a heart, which we will then post on a fence put together by our talented set design firm. Thank you once again for joining us this evening. I sincerely hope you enjoy the show, but more importantly, it's our intention to use Matt Shepard's story as motivation to foster acceptance. So please silence all cell phones, and without further ado, the Laramie Project.
On November 14, 1998, the members of the Tectonic Theater Company traveled to Laramie, Wyoming, and conducted interviews with people of the town. During the next year, we would return to Laramie several times and conduct over 200 interviews. The play you're about to see is edited from those interviews, as well as journal entries from the members of the company and other found texts. Company member Greg Parati.
My first interview was with Detective Sergeant Heng of the Laramie Police Department. At the start of the interview, he was sitting behind his desk, sitting something like this. I was born and raised here.
My family is third generation. My grandparents moved here in the 1900s. We've been here for my daughter makes it 4 generations. All the towns in Wyoming are spaced pretty far apart, because it was how far the trains had to go before they had to refuel and rewater. And Laramie was a major stopping point. We are one of the largest states and the least populated.
There's so much space between people and towns here, so much time for reflection.
Rebecca Hilliker, head of the theater department at the University of Wyoming.
You have the opportunity to be happy in your life here. The people here are so much nicer than the people where I used to work out in North Dakota and the Midwest, because they're happy. They're glad the sun is shining, and it shines a lot here.
So, basically, what you have is your old-timey rancher-type people. They've been here forever, and Laramie is a hub where they get all their stuff.
Stewardship is one thing all our ancestors taught us.
Eileen Engen, rancher.
If you don't take care of the land, then you ruin it and lose your living. So you, first of all, have to take care of your land and do everything you can to improve it.
I love it here.
Doc O'Connor, limousine driver.
You couldn't put me back in that mess out there back east. Best thing about it's the climate, the cold, the wind. They say a Wyoming wind will drive a man insane, but it don't bother me. Well, sometimes it bothers me, but most time it don't.
So then you have the university population.
I moved here after living in a couple of big cities.
Philip Dubois, president of the University of Wyoming.
I loved it there, but you have to be out of your mind to let your kids out after dark. But here, in the summertime, I let my kids stay out till like 11 o'clock, and I don't think twice about it.
And then you have the people who live here, basically.
I moved here from rural Texas.
Zachy Salmon.
Now, in Laramie, if you don't know someone, you definitely know someone they know. So it's only like 1 degree removed at most. And for me, I love it. I mean, I love to go to the store and visit with 4 or 5 or 6 people every time I go. And I don't mind people knowing my business, because what's my business? My business is basically good.
I like the trains, too. They don't bother me. Well, sometimes they bother me, but most of the time they don't. Even though one goes by every 13 minutes out where I live.
Doc lives up in Bosler, but everybody in Laramie knows him. He's also not actually a doctor.
They used to carry cattle in them trains. Now they carry diapers and cars.
I grew up in Cody, Wyoming.
April Silva, university student.
Laramie is better than where I grew up. I'll give it that.
It's a good place to live. Good people, lots of space. Now, when the incident with that boy happened, we had a lot of press and reporters down here. And one time I was going out to the crime scene, and this one reporter lady, she followed me up there. It was a really clear and crisp day, and the sky was just that type of blue that you'll never be able to paint, and the mountains in the back had a little bit of snow on them. It was just gorgeous. And this one reporter lady, she walked up to me, and she said,
Well, who found the boy? Who's out here anyway?
and I turned to her and I said, well, this is a big place for running, mountain biking, horseback riding is pretty big out here. There were just a lot of people here at any moment. And she looks at me and she says,
Who the hell would want to run around out here?
and I am thinking, lady, you are missing the whole point. All you have to do is listen to the birds, look at the trees, breathe the air, just take in what's around you. I didn't feel like I was being judged or anything, I just felt that they were stupid. They were missing the whole point. They were just missing the whole point.
If you would have asked me before, I would have said, Laramie's a beautiful place. It's hard for us to talk about it now.
Jedediah Schultz.
To tell you what Laramie means to us. It had this sense of personality. It was secluded enough that we could be independent. But it was still a strong sense of community. Everybody knew everybody. But after Matthew come to town, defined by an accident, a crime. Come Waco, Jasper, or a definition, a noun, a sign. We may be able to get rid of that, but it'll sure take a while.
Journal entries. Members of the company, Andy Paris.
Moise called saying he had an idea for his next theater project, but there was a somberness to his voice. So I asked what it was all about, and he told me he wanted to do a piece on what's happening in Wyoming.
Stephen Belbert.
Lay told me that the company was thinking of going out to Laramie to conduct interviews. But I'm hesitant. I have no real interest in the towns I'm traveling.
Amanda Gronich.
I have never done anything like this before in my life. How do you get people to talk to you? What do you ask?
Moise Kaufman.
The company has agreed that we should go down to Laramie for a few weeks and conduct some interviews about the whole situation down there. I'm a bit nervous about taking 10 people on a trip of this nature. Must make some safety rules up. No one works alone. Everyone carries a cell phone. I've made some preliminary contacts with Rebecca Hilliker. She's the head of the theater department at the University of Wyoming. She's agreed to host a party for us our first night in Laramie. Introduce us to some possible interviewees.
Now, I must tell you that when I first found out you were thinking of coming here, when you first called me, it felt like you had kicked me in the stomach. Like, why are you doing this to me? But then I realized, no, that's stupid. You're not doing this to me. And I thought more about it, and we've just had so much negative closure over this whole thing. And the students need to talk. I mean, when this first happened, the students were talking, and then the media descended, and all dialogue stopped. You know, I love my students, because they're free thinkers. And you may not like what they have to say, you may not agree with their opinions because they can be very redneck, but they're honest, and they're truthful. Back where I used to work, out in North Dakota in the Midwest, there was so much Puritanism in the way that people thought about the world that I couldn't get my students to express an opinion. I couldn't get them to have an opinion. And quite honestly, I'd rather have an opinion that I don't agree with and have that dynamic in education. There's a student I think you should talk to. His name is Jedediah Schultz.
Well, I've lived in Wyoming my whole life. My family's been in Wyoming for generations. When it came time to send me to college, my parents can't afford to send me to go. I wanted to study theater. So I knew that if I was going to get to go to college, I was going to need to get on scholarship. So they have this Wyoming State High School competition each year. I knew if I could just do good enough in duets, be able to take first place. So I go to the Department of Theater at the university, and I say, I need a killer scene. And they go, here you go. It was Angels in America. So I read it, and I know if I can do just a good enough job, I can win first place. So I go, I tell my parents, so they could come to the competition. You gotta understand, My parents come to everything, every ball game, every hockey game, everything that I have ever done. So I tell them about the competition. They pull me into the room, and they tell me that if I perform that scene, they won't come and see me at that competition. Because they believe that it is wrong. That homosexuality is wrong. They believed it that strongly that they didn't come see their only son do probably the most important thing he had done up to that point in his life. I didn't know what to do. I had never, ever opposed my parents. I was kind of nervous, but I decided to do it. And all I can remember is that when we were done, my scene partner and I, we stood up. We walked over to each other, we shook hands, and there was a standing ovation. Man, it was amazing. And we took first place, and we won, and that's how I come to afford to be here at the university. Because of that scene. It was one of the best moments in my life, and my parents weren't there to see it. And to this day, that is the one thing they didn't see me do. And you know, thinking back on it, I think, why did I do it? Why did I oppose my parents? Because I am not gay. So why did I do it? And, you know, the only honest answer I can give is I wanted to win. It was an amazing scene. It was like the best scene. Do you know Mr. Kushner? Maybe you could tell him.
soon as we crossed the Wyoming border, I swear I saw a herd of buffalo. Also, I thought it was strange that the Wyoming sign said Wyoming,
like no place on earth.
instead of Wyoming, like no place else on earth.
Company member Lee Fondakowski.
I stopped at a local inn for a bite to eat, and my waitress said to me, "Hi, my name is Debbie. I was born in 1954, and Debbie Reynolds was big then, so yes, there are a ton of us around. But I promise I won't slap you if you put your elbows on the table."
Today, the company tried to no avail to explain to me what chicken fried steak was.
Now, are you from Wyoming, or just passing through? Just passing through.
Company member Barbara Pitts.
We arrived in Laramie tonight, just past the Welcome to Laramie sign, population 26,687. In the dark, we could be on any main drag in America. Gas stations, fast food chains. But as we got into the downtown, it's kind of resembled more of a turn-century Western town. Oh, and as we passed the University Inn, on the sign where amenities such as heated pool or cable TV are usually touted, it said,
Hate is not a Laramie value.
Greg Karate.
Today, I met with two longtime Laramie residents, Allison Mears and Marge Murray, two social service workers who taught me a thing or two.
Well, but Laramie used to be live, but it was mostly rural.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, you know? All my kids had horses.
Well, there was more land. I mean, you could keep your pet cow, your horse, your little chickens. I mean, have your bit of acreage.
Yeah, I could run around the house in my all-togethers, do the housework while the kids were in school, and nobody could see me if they got that close.
Well, that's their problem.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I got the expression right. In your all-togethers?
Well, yeah, honey. Why wear clothes?
How's he going to use that in his play?
Anyway, so this is a big ranching town?
Oh, not just ranching. I mean, this was a big railroad town at one time, before they moved everything to Cheyenne and Green River and Omaha. So now, well, it's just kind of a drive-through stop for the railroad until, when was it, in the 50s? Well, they had one big roundhouse, and it had such a shop that you could build a complete engine.
They did. My mom worked there.
Your mom worked in the roundhouse?
Yep, she washed engines. Her name was Minnie. We used to, sing that song for her. You know that song?
What song?
Run for the roundhouse, Minnie. They can't corner you there.
But I'll tell you, Wyoming is bad in terms of jobs. I mean, the university has all the big, high, whoop-de-doo kind of jobs, but Wyoming, unless you're a professional, well, the bulk of the people are working minimum wage jobs.
She's right. I've been either in the service industry or bartending most of my life. Now I know everybody in town.
And she does.
And I do. Now I'll tell you, in Laramie, there's a difference. And there always has been. It's about the well-educated and the ones that are not. And the educated don't understand why the ones that are not don't get educated. That's why I told you, before, my kids had to fight because their mother was a bartender. Never mind, I was the best damn bartender in town.
And she was.
That's not bragging, that's fact.
But here in Laramie, if it weren't for the university, well, we'd just be SOL.
What's SOL?
Do I have to say it? It's out of luck. Oh, Lord, you got that on your tape? Well, you're getting an education
when this happened to Matthew Shepard?
Well, I've been close enough to the case to know many of the people. I have a daughter that's on the sheriff's department. As far as the gay issue, I don't give a damn one way or the other as long as they don't bother me. And even if they did, I'd just say no thank you. And that's the attitude of most of the Laramie population. They might poke one. If they were in a bar situation, you know, they've been drinking, they might actually smack one in the mouth. But then they just walk away. Most of them said they would just say, I don't swing that way, and whistle on about their business. Laramie is live and let live.
Yeah, and I'd say Marge probably knows a lot more than she's even willing to say. But I respect her for that.
Well, where are you going with this story?
Well, we haven't entirely decided yet, but in the end, we're going to try to bring it back around to Laramie.
Oh, okay. Then there are parts I won't tell you.
Company member, Andy Paris.
Today, for the first time, we met with someone who actually knew Matthew Shepard. Trish Steger, owner of a shop in town, referred to him as Matt.
Matt used to come into my shop. That's how I knew him.
It was the first time I'd heard him referred to as Matt instead of Matthew. Did he go by Matt to everyone?
Well, I got a call about 10 after 7.
Doc O'Connor.
It was Matthew Shepard, and he said, can you pick me up at the corner of 3rd and Grand? Anyhow, I get over there, and who do I see but Matthew Shepard? Bet you 95 pounds tops. Soaking wet. Maybe 5'2", 5'1". They say in the papers he was 5'5". I won't believe it for a second. They also said he was 110. I don't believe it. Anyway, he comes up to my window, and I'm going to go step by step so you can really understand the principle of this man. So he comes up to my window and I say, are you Matthew Shepard? And he says, yeah, I'm Matthew Shepard, but I don't want you to call me Matthew or Mr. Shepard. I don't want you to call me anything. My name is Matt, and I'm gay, and we're going to a gay bar. Do you have a problem with that? And I said, how are you paying? The problem is, Laramie doesn't have any gay bars. And for that matter, neither does Wyoming. So he was hiring me to go down to Fort Collins, Colorado, about an hour and a half away. Matt was a blunt little guy. You see what I'm saying? He always was. That's what I liked about him. He was straightforward. See what I'm saying? Maybe gay, but straightforward. See what I'm saying?
I don't know. You know, how does any one person ever tell about another? You really should talk to my sister Romaine. She's very close friends with Matthew. We never called him Matthew, actually. Most of the time, we just called him Choo Choo, you know? 'Cause we used to call him Matchu, and then we just called him Choo Choo. And whenever I think of Matthew, I think of his incredible beaming smile. You know, he'd walk into a room and he'd just be like, and he smiled at everyone. He just made you feel great. And he would like stare people down in the coffee shop because he always wanted to sit at the end seat so he could talk to me while I was working. And if someone was in that seat, he would sit there and stare at them until they left, and then he would claim his spot. Matt definitely had a political side to him. I mean, he really wanted to get into political affairs. That's all his big interest was watching CNN and MSNBC. That's all I ever saw his TV tuned to. Yeah. No.
Matthew was very shy when he first came in,
John Peacock, Matthew Shepard's academic advisor.
to the point of being somewhat mousy, I'd almost say. He was having some difficulties adjusting, but this was home for him, and he made that quite clear. And so his mousiness, his shyness, gave way to a person that was excited about this path he was going to embark on. He was starting to say things like, wow, there are opportunities here. There are things I can do in this world. I can be important.
I did hear from Matthew about 48 hours before his attack. And he told me he had joined the gay and lesbian group on campus. And he was really excited about it, you know? He was getting ready for Pride Week and whatnot, and he was totally stoked about school. Yeah, he was really happy about being there.
And in retrospect, and I can only say this in retrospect, of course, I think he was headed towards human rights, which only adds to the irony and tragedy of this.
I'll tell you what, there's a lot more gay people in Wyoming than meets the eye. I know for a fact. Now, they're not all the, what do you call them, the queens. You know, the queens, the run-around faggot type people. Nah, they're the ones that throw bale, hay, ride horses, brand them, and kick ass. Like I always say, don't mess with the Wyoming queer, because they'll beat you bad. But that's not what I'm trying to say. I know a lot of gay people in Wyoming. I know a lot of Wyoming people, period. I've been living up here some 40-odd years. And I'm just going to say, I don't think people give a damn one way or another if you're gay or straight. That's what I just said. And if there's 8 men and 1 woman in a Wyoming bar, which is often the case, you sit and you wonder, who's getting what here? Nah, that don't take a big intelligent brain to figure that one out.
My understanding when I first came here
Catherine Connolly.
was that I was the first out gay or lesbian faculty member here on campus, and that was 1992, so it wasn't that long ago. In my interview, they asked me what my husband did, so came out then. Want a funny story? When you get here as a new faculty member, there's all this stuff you have to do, so I was sitting at my desk, and I noticed I had a missed call. I expected, it was a health insurance phone call, so I called the woman back, and I could hear her. She's working at her keyboard, clicking away, and I said, this is Kathy Connolly returning your phone call, and she was like, oh, it's you. And I thought, this is bizarre. And she was like, I hear you're gay. I hear you are. And I was like, uh-huh. And she was like, I hear you came as a couple. I'm one too. Not a couple, just a person. And so I guess she was a kind of lesbian who knew I was coming and wanted to meet with me immediately. But she later told me that she knew other lesbians who wouldn't be seen with me. That I would irreparably taint them, that just to be seen with me could be a problem.
When I came here, I knew it was going to be hard as a gay man.
Jonas Vonneker.
But I kept telling myself, people should live where they want to live. And so there would be times I'd go down to Denver, and I'd go to gay bars, and people would ask, where are you from? And I'd say, Laramie, Wyoming. And I met so many guys from Wyoming. So many gay guys from Wyoming. And they were all like, I couldn't live there. How can you live there? I had to get out of there. Grr, grr, grr. But every once in a while, there'd be a guy. And he'd be like, oh man, I really love Wyoming. I mean, I really loved it there. That's where I want to live. And I'm like, if that's where you want to live, do it. I mean, imagine if more gay people started living in small towns. But that's easier said than done.
Today we are moving from our motel to a Best Western.
What's it called?
My hope is it's a better Western.
Amanda Groningen.
Today, we split up into groups to go to different churches within the community. Moise and I were given a local Baptist church, and we were welcomed to the services by the Reverend himself, standing at the entrance of the chapel. This is what I remember of that morning.
My dear brothers and sisters, I am here today to bring you the word of the Lord. Now, I have a simple truth that I tell to my colleagues, and I'm going to tell it to you today. The word is either sufficient or it is not. Scientists tell me that the world, that human history was created 5 billion or 6 billion years ago. After all, what's a billion years, give or take? The Bible tells me that the world was created 6,000 years ago. The word is either sufficient or it is not.
Ah, the sociology of religion in the West.
Stephen Meade Johnson, Unitarian minister.
Dominant religious traditions in this town. Baptist, Mormon, they're everywhere. It's not just Salt Lake, you know. They're all over. They're like jam on toast down here.
The Mormon Church has a little different thing going on that irritates some folks.
Doug Laws, state ecclesiastical leader for the Mormon Church.
And that is, we absolutely believe that God still talks to man to this day. We don't believe that he spoke and someone wrote about it one time. We believe that our prophets are still allowed to receive inspiration and revelation from God.
So, the spectrum would be, on the left side of that panel, so far left that I'm probably sitting by myself, is me and the Unitarian Church. Unitarians are, by and large, humanists, many of whom are atheists. I mean, we're not even sure we're a religion. And to my right on the spectrum, to his credit, Father Roger, Catholic priest, who's well established here, and God bless him, he did not equivocate at all when this happened. He hosted the vigil for Matthew that night.
Well, when we hosted the vigil, we wanted to get other ministers involved, and they were not going to get involved, and that angered me immensely. I thought, we're supposed to stand out as leaders. We're just going to sit here and see which way the wind blows? Wow, what is going on here?
God has set boundaries, and one of our duties is to learn. What is it that God wants? So you study scripture, you look to your leaders, and you sort of kind of get a feel for what the bounds are. Now once you sort of know what the bounds are, you get a feel for what's out of bounds. A proclamation came out on family. A family is defined as one man, one woman, and children. That's about as clear as you can state it. There is no sexual deviancy in the Mormon Church. We just think it's out of bounds. It is out of bounds.
I warn you, you will be mocked. You will be ridiculed for the singularity of your faith. But you let the Bible be your guide, it's in there. It's all in there.
The Christian pastors, many of the conservative ones, were silent on this. Conservative Christians use the Bible to show the rest of the world, it says here in the Bible. And many Americans believe, and they do, that the Bible is the Word of God. And how are you going to fight that?
I am a biblicist, which means the Bible doesn't need me to be true. The Bible is true whether I believe it or not. The Word is sufficient, or it is not.
I arrived in Laramie on September 15th. I looked around, tumbleweed, cement factory, and I asked myself, what in the hell am I doing in Wyoming? 3 weeks later, I find out what the hell I'm doing in Wyoming.
Today, I met with a university student named Zubaydah Ullah. She is an Islamic feminist who likes to do things her own way.
I've lived in Laramie since I was 4. Yeah, my parents are from Bangladesh, and 2 years ago, because I'm Muslim, I decided to start wearing a scarf. That's really changed my life here in Laramie. Yeah, like, people ask me, like, why do you have to wear that thing on your head? And, like, when I go to the grocery store, I'm not looking to get into Islam 101, you know what I mean? So I'll say, you know, it's part of my religion, and they'll be like, this is the worst part. Because they'll be like, I know it's part of your religion, but why? And it's like, how am I supposed to get into the whole doctrine of physical modesty in my own personal relationship with the Lord, standing there with my bob and chips, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, it's so unreal to me that, you know, that a group from New York is writing a play about Laramie. And then I keep picturing, you know, like, you guys are going to be in a play about my town. You guys are going to be on stage in New York pretending like you're us. That's so weird. Carnage, and I'm here in Laramie working with the theater company. I went to the Reverend of your husband's services on Sunday, and I was extremely interested in speaking with him about his thoughts on recent events.
Well, you see, I don't really think he'll want to talk to you. He has very biblical views on homosexuality. He doesn't condone that kind of violence, but he doesn't condone that kind of lifestyle either. You know? And after this happened, the media has just been awful, and we've just been bombarded with lies.
Oh, I understand. Must have been just horrible.
Yeah, I think we're all just kind of hoping this goes away.
Could I call back and speak with your husband just briefly?
Well, all right. Call back tonight at 9 o'clock.
Thanks so much. I'll do that.